Are we on? We are. Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. Glad you could make it here this morning. This is our fourth class of integrity. Again, this series was by Andy Stanley. I'm just borrowing it on a no-return basis and modifying it and changing it, but glad you could be here today. My quote for today comes from Warren Wiersbe. He emphasizes that we must be careful to protect our own personal integrity. When integrity goes, then character starts to decay. When character goes, we've lost everything important. No matter what you may possess, money, popularity, talent, friends, if you don't have character, you don't have anything. But character depends on integrity. People with integrity are people who are honest with themselves, with others, and with God. They don't wear masks and they don't waste energy pretending to be what they aren't. And when we say masks, not the mask you guys have on now. They're not afraid of what others may find out about them because they have nothing to hide. That's just an interesting quote I found from Warren. He's a Christian writer. Well, where we left off last week, if you recall, is we started talking about in Proverbs 11:3, where it says, "The integrity and the moral courage of the upright will guide them." One of the things that Andy says in his classes is sit up. If you're sitting up, sit up straight, stand up straight. You remember even back in school when you're getting ready to do a test, the teachers always say, okay, sit up straight, get your pencils and get ready, sit, so you can take your test. Because if you're leaning over your desk like this, and you just know you're not involved. It's just you have no focus. If you're looking down, if your focus is here, then that's what you right now. What's in front of you is what's important. If you're focusing, looking out, that's future. That's your attention, your more attention. Like I said, we also have heard all of our parents say, straighten up. We all know what that means. So it's kind of interesting that when it says here that our integrity and moral courage of the upright will guide them. Remember, and then I asked the question, what guides you in your life? Well, so it's a good question to ask yourself. Really, what guides you? And at this point, Andy said, if you remember, he said, what he wanted is to all of us to make sure that our integrity was tested sometime in our life, and not just tested, but a pop quiz. That's really when you know if you know something. You walk into something and someone just says, "Quick, what's the answer? What do you do?" Which we find ourselves in our lives doing. We find ourselves all of a sudden something comes to us, and we have to make a decision right then. What do we do? Are we going to use our integrity and our moral courage? Do I tell the truth? Do I do the right thing? Do we have time to weigh what the cost is? Those sort of things. So, if you also remember in doing this, I said, again, what guides you? But, we don't know if our integrity guides us until maintaining it costs us. Just something that we want to make sure that we understand, Remember, I'll never do that. We've all said that about something. I'll never do that. Never. But you don't know that. We've all run into this. You don't know that until that happens. And today we're going to see we're going to look at the Bible. We're going to look at a place where this comes into play, where it's you think I'm sure you're going to have read this many times, but maybe you didn't see this in that when we start reading it. But it kind of came to a point that this person didn't know that, and suddenly there was that. Suddenly there was that pop quiz. Suddenly this came up, and they had to make a decision. So, the integrity and the moral courage of the upright will guide them. There's also a second half of that. Those of you that looked that up maybe last week was going to wait for we get to the second half because we didn't have time to. But the second half is, but the crookedness. Honey, here, Simple Safe. Our alarm's going off. So just tell them our stuff. We have one sensor that it's probably the basement sensor or something. Something makes it go off. But so again, this is the two-sided proverb. The integrity and the moral courage of the upright will guide them, but the crookedness of the treacherous will destroy them. Again, the crookedness, right? The crookedness, they're just looking at what's now, what's in front of them. Now versus later. Now versus later if you're standing up. Treacherous. When you hear the word treacherous, what comes to mind? Give me a description of what you think treacherous means. It's not something we use all the time, but what do you think? Backstabbers. Okay. Have you ever seen this sign on a trail? Watch it. Watch, treacherous trail ahead. Dangerous, right? Yeah. Some. That, I was,
To the point of harms are scary.
okay.
I don't. I'm going to speak for Lou he was telling Susan. This is like fourth hand. He was telling Susan about his mom when they went to Glacier National Park and they went across the road to the sun going to the sun. And now he can tell the rest of it.
Well, we had just moved from Kansas to Montana, and we're waiting for our house. And so we decided to go up over this road that goes over top in the middle of Glacier Park. And when you look over the edge, it could be 1,000 feet right off the edge. And I just said we had permanent fingernail marks in her grip slide of the car, and she was just constantly telling my dad to scoot up and reach it. Because it was treacherous.
Yeah, it was. You said so. Treacherous. I mean, it really means something, doesn't it? It's not just a word. It means dangerous. I mean, but the crookedness of the things that are dangerous. I mean, if you've ever been, and what I was thinking was down at Zion. If you ever went on, I was thinking the name of that trail. I think they've even closed it now. Angel's Landing. Yeah. And you got the chain you're trying to hold on to. And I mean. And how many people have died off of that trail, I mean, that's a treacherous trail. I mean, it's not something to be taken lightly, You just don't go up there just because you think you want to do it. But the crookedness of the treacherous will destroy them, I think we all agree upon this, And then I ask the question, how many of us, or people have made a quick decision on something that you wish now you maybe would have stood upright and had a longer look at it? A lot of times we're right here. I need to make this decision instead of looking at the long way. Remember what Andy said, immediate versus ultimate. Now versus later. Shopping? or if you go to the store hungry, right? They say, don't go to the store hungry. This was an important point, I believe, that Andy made that we didn't quite get to as well. He says, the health of your relationships and the respect of your kids and spouse is contingent on your integrity, not your infallibility. Read that again. The health of our relationships and the respect of our kids and our spouse is contingent on our integrity, not our infallibility. It's okay to make mistakes. We all do, right? But it's really, really not okay to cover them up. That's the hard part, obviously, that we all have a hard time to do. But it's okay to make mistakes. In fact, he was talking about his kids and how he's always saying, I'm sorry. And then one of his little kids was doing the same thing, always saying, I'm sorry. He was saying, what's wrong with, how come so? Well, he's just looking at you, doing what you're doing. You're always saying you're sorry. But it's okay. And it's okay to let everyone know that we are all human, that we all make mistakes, that we're not perfect. Instead of digging into our integrity and our moral courage. So that's kind of where we wanted. That's kind of about where we left off. But he did say another definition, which kind of just to break it down, so we can all remember. A short definition of integrity is do what we ought to, even if it costs us. Do what we ought to do, even if it costs us. Right? So again, today I want to start looking at something that we all face, we all deal with, and maybe not by itself, but it's a real instance. It could be something that we may think is bad, but also something that poses a constant threat to our integrity. Something we look at on an everyday basis. Appetites. Like I said, they pose a constant threat to our integrity just about every day. We usually have to say no to one to protect or satisfy the other. So we either have to say no to an appetite to maintain our integrity, or we have to say no to our integrity to maintain our appetites. Now, in our modern culture, generally we think of appetite, we think of basically two things: food and, I'll say it's sex. That's a pretty common thing. It's a simple definition of appetites. It's a strong desire or liking for something. And we'll get to some definitions here, but I think where you'll see that. But we're talking about, here's some of the appetites that we have to deal with on a regular basis. We have to have acceptance. We want that. It's an appetite. We want it. Intimacy, respect, recognition. It's like your power. Again, respect, fame. There's people that's what they want. It's an appetite. It's like they need it. Achievement, winning. Progress. We all want to improve. We all want to see things going forward. To be envied. And I like this one. Stuff. We have an appetite for stuff, and then more stuff. And then we have appetite for new stuff, right? Responsibility. These are just some of a list of everything. Every one of these things. And they all seem reasonable, don't they? At times, don't you think? I mean, it's not that these are bad. At some level or some point. These can have an effect on our integrity. Yes. We all like to have control. You're exactly right. I mean, this is just a short list of some of the things that we have to deal with. So what I want to do is I want to make 3 general statements about appetites. Maybe they'll help us to understand and see where we're going to be going here today. So, point number 1, and I think it's safe to say that we're all Christians. We all believe in God and is here. So as a Christian, we all believe when it comes to appetites, God created them and sin distorted them. Right? I think we can all agree to that, right? So, but point number 2, everybody, whether you're a believer or not in God, believe that appetites are never fully or finally satisfied. Anyone have a problem with that? Appetites are never fully and finally satisfied. Right? We're always, we may have, but yet we're going to want it again. We're going to want it again. It's never going to be fully or finally satisfied. In fact, appetites have a one-word vocabulary. Who might guess what that is? More. More. That's all that appetites want, is more, right? And the problem is, more fuels our discontentment. We see people out there that we think, live better than us. They drive a nicer car than us. They have a nicer home than us. They have a nicer job than us. We want more. We want more, don't we? But think about this. The fact is that around the world there are thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that if they looked at us, they would be going, "Wow! If I only had what we had. If I only had what we had right here in this country." There's people all around the world that would go, "Man, even if we was to take all of our lives, 15, 20 years ago, we'd still be, there's people be going, yeah, I'll take that. That's more than I could even think of,
We had an exchange student, some of you might remember, we had an exchange student from Spain, and we would take him to Walmart, and after about 5 minutes, he'd say, I have to go outside. And I asked him why one time, he goes, there's just too much stuff. I'm not used to seeing this. It's overwhelming. Just the selection. We go, we get milk. You and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I traveled a lot. I worked over in Europe. You go get milk in Europe, there's milk. There's not 4 brands and 3 different versions of it, which gives you 12 selections. There's milk.
Right.
Jeff, when I was in engineering school back in the early 70s, early to mid 70s, I thought, if I can get a job that'll pay me $1,000 a month, that'll be it.
That's all you need.
Who needs more than that?
Yeah, and again, it's amazing how we do that comparison. We we get into this trap of comparison. In fact, it's really a bait trap, isn't it? We see it. We all want to be in that. We want more. We want to win. And it's just a spiraling rabbit hole. The term "keeping up with the Joneses," right? In fact, I was telling Leanne yesterday I had to go up to a funeral up in Francis by Camas up in the up by Park City up there. And you think, oh, Camas, it's just a little small town, it's just a little farming type community. And I had to go inside. There was this a newer community up there, and it was over by Francis. Not driven by, in Francis, it's even smaller than Camas. It's just a spot in the road right there, a little stop sign. But there was this new building area, and I'm driving through it, and I'm like, gosh, these are nice homes up here, man. These are real nice, up here in the, up on the, you've got the mountains looking and everything. So you start doing this. Gosh, maybe it'd be nicer to live up here than down in that busy valley. And you just start. It's just common that we start this comparison of, gosh, these are nicer up here, and I don't have to worry about. I could probably leave my. I thought I bet I could leave my doors open. I wouldn't have to lock my doors. So one of the interesting things about appetites always whisper now, not later. Always whisper now, not later. Not straight. This kind of goes back to that other verse in the Bible we talked about. Later versus now, right? Appetites never say, yeah, let's wait till tomorrow. Do they? No. That's not appetite speaking. Appetites want it now. Like I said, there's been many a thing we've talked about. So we watched. When you go to the store, don't go to the store hungry, because you're going to come back with something. You're going to go, why did I buy this? Well, it looked good at this. Right then, boy, that looked good. And I'm always, so Leanne sometimes she'll go to the store. I'm just go to the store and I've got my list. I've got 3 things. She'll come back with 5 or 6. Maybe. Well, they looked good, right? Yeah. I figure we can do something like that. We can use those sort of things.
Another word for appetite, closely associated with impulse.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, in the old days, when Costco gave you samples to eat along the way, did anyone ever escape from Costco paying less than $100?
Same with Sam's. I told Leanna, says, it's a $100 trip every time we go to Sam's, no matter what.
And some of that is impulse. It's
Yeah.
appetite.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know I needed this, but boy, I sure do.
That's true, but like I say, it is very good if you want to go to any of those places. Eat before you go, because you'll come home with less things. Again, that's that appetite that comes into play, just that food appetite we have. Oops, let me go back one more. I thought I had another slide here. Well, again, appetites are not a fan of delayed gratification. They tempt us to opt for immediate over ultimate. They tempt us to opt for now over later. And like I said, appetites pose a constant tension. It's constant. It isn't just once in a while. It's constantly out there. Constant tension and threat to our integrity. Okay, so now we're going to talk about it's an Old Testament story, and hopefully illustrates the tension, and maybe more important, it gives us a word picture that we can take with us today about how important our integrity is, and what are you willing to give it up for? Now, this story happens about 1800 BC. It's a story about 2 brothers, actually twin brothers. The older brother is the first out of the womb, and he's turned out to be a hunter and a warrior and a doer. While the younger brother, just probably by minutes or seconds out of the womb, turned out to be a thinker, a schemer, and a very good cook. Anybody know who the story is? Jacob and Esau. You're right. But if we were to do it properly, who's the eldest? Esau. It should be Esau and Jacob, shouldn't it? Right? Because he's the one that came out of the womb first. And it's back then, that's all it took was if you had twins, the first one out, that's the. And what's the important thing about being the first? Their birthright, exactly. Yeah. And again, if you just look at all your Bibles, it's going to say Jacob and Esau. But this is probably one of the only places that you're going to see that, because Cain and Abel, right? We say Cain and Abel. Well, which is the oldest? Cain is the oldest, Ishmael and Isaac. This is the way it always was back then. But this is very strange because we see Jacob and Esau here. And it's because of that birthright. Now, in our culture, we don't, it doesn't mean anything to us. But back then, birthright was an unwritten law. And it was so common back then. But to be the firstborn male, you received the birthright of that family, which means you had certain rights just to do with who you as the firstborn had, and that would be it. A lot of powerful things. Here's how it worked. If you were the firstborn, you had special privileges given to you and only to you. You didn't even have to earn them. You didn't have to. There was no test. You didn't have to later in life do something. And okay, now that we see that you're a good enough person that you're going to get that. That's all happened as soon as you were born. It's just because you were the firstborn male. For example, you would receive a double inheritance. Okay, that's right. That may have been very good, but now realize back then they had multiple wives, and they paid, which means they had hundreds of kids, or could have been a bunch of kids. But it really did mean something. It was a very important part. But one of the other really important things that they got to have was judicial authority. The firstborn had judicial authority. Now, maybe that's something that we may want even today, if you were firstborn. But whenever there was a dispute between the whole family, they came to you, and you got to decide how to solve the issue. So I don't know how many of us would want to have that come back to be the firstborn if they would take care of that. But that was one of the very important things. And also, they received a special father's blessing, which, again, back then, in that culture, was the highest blessing that you could receive over, from a godly type blessing, was the father's blessing, because he would bless it so the whole family, so that everything would be taken care of. And we see in this story even how that turned out a little bit farther about the blessing and what happened during that. But so anyway, the story is going to be in Genesis 25, 27 through 34. We're going to skip the part where they were born and so forth. But it says in 27, the boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter and a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. So we see a contrast in them right there, right? We've seen twins, that you think, oh, you must do a lot of things the same. Well, no, a lot of twins have a split, and they're totally different. And these two were definitely totally different. Esau became a skillful hunter. He wanted to be out in the open country all the time, where Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents and among the women. And, of course, what are the women doing? They're learning to cook, and so they're teaching him to probably cook. And he obviously becomes a very good cook, doesn't he? So, now Isaac is the father, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau. But Rebekah, their mother, loved Jacob. Now, this is a little bit of a problem right here, don't you think? Where one parent is loving one child more than the other and vice versa. They're kind of setting themselves up right now. It's a little bit of a different thing there, because it's, we're not going to get into this, but it's kind of odd that this is there, But Isaac, who loved the taste for wild game, he'd tend to probably, have Esau do more for him. He was the one that would always give him a hug, and Rebekah would give Jacob a hug. So it goes on to say, once when Jacob was cooking some stew, obviously he was a good cook, Esau came in from the open country, famished. Have you ever been famished? If you would call yourself that?
We might use that term, but I don't think any of us have ever been so hungry we'd sell our birthright for it.
Well, true. But what would we do for it? Yeah. You think. You would think that that what we're going to get into here, it's about the same sort of a thing, So he said to Jacob, quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished. Quick, now. I'm looking here. Now, quickly, quick. Whenever we hear that word quick, sometimes we need to put the brakes on, don't we? Is that really, quick. Let me have some of that red stew. That's definitely an appetite talking when we hear that quick. Now, there's a dynamic here that that rarely happens. When you're the younger brother, the weaker brother, and you have an advantage over a stronger, maybe a little bit older brother, right? And this almost never happens, does it? How many of you are the younger of the brothers? Okay. So whenever you had an opportunity to get one over on the older brother, did you do it? Yeah. But that didn't happen all the time, though. I mean, it couldn't. I mean, the opportunity wasn't always there, right? Wasn't always there. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And how many of you were the older brothers? Okay, older brothers. So you had a younger brother, and you wanted there's times when he probably tried to get something over on you, right? Well, Jacob replied to Esau, "Well, you want my stew? Well, I tell you what, you want some of my stew? Just I don't know if Leanne makes a killer lentil stew or soup. I mean, if you like lentils, but if you come in, to me it's like okay, we go to the movies and so you want popcorn tonight? Nah, I'm not going to eat popcorn when we go there. Nah, not going to get any. As soon as you walk in, you're like, oh, you get the tickets. I'm going to get some popcorn. All it takes is a certain smell. And popcorn is one of those things to me. And I'm like, yep, I'm in. Quick, give me some popcorn. And so you bet, he's sitting there, and he's famished, he's coming in. He's like, so Jacob knows, I'll tell you what, first sell me your birthright. So that's kind of a strange situation there, isn't it? That he's going to find himself in, So, and I don't know if this kind of sounds something to you. So maybe again, one of you guys have been in our modern society. So, you don't want mom to know what time you came in last night, right? The little brother sees talking to the bigger brother. So what's it worth to you? What's it worth to you? Did you use that line from Randy? What's it worth to you? Yeah, what's it worth to you? And Andy used it. He has a younger brother, and he said, he would inevitably start. Again, you're going to start at the top, right? You're going to start at something good. You're not going to say, well, give me a couple pieces of candy. You're going to start at something that maybe not even reachable. You wouldn't think is reachable. And then Andy would always say, let me drive your car. His younger brother. Well, he was only 14, but let me drive your car. He's like, well, yeah. What do you mean? And then it'd work your way down. So we can see Jacob starting right at the top. You can imagine what had gone on in their life growing up, and how much that Esau was probably holding. Well, I'm the oldest. You're just a little brother. You're not. But so Jacob took this stuff and he knew it. So now he's got him in a position where he can say, well, first sell me your birthright, right? And remember, Jacob, he's a thinker, he's shrewd, and he wants to get the most out of this request. So he's going to start big. Now remember, Esau's whole future, all of his power, his reputation, the respect that comes from the birthright we talk about is on the line here. But I'm famished. Who would ever, as Jim said, who would ever contemplate giving away their birthright for a bowl of stew?
But I would be willing to bet that there's several of us that have entered into a transaction at one time or another that we regretted. And because of an appetite and something happens. I know I was in a
You're right, Steve. I mean, we see it right from here. Again, we can. It's easy to go, duh. Why did you? I wouldn't have done. I'd never do that, Steve. I'd never sell my birthright. Yeah, we could see real easy for us to look at others and say, I'll never do that. But yeah, we know we've all done something, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just pointing this stuff out, it's kind of like we've all done something, But again, you would think,
When you said that, Jeff, it reminded me of Peter. He said, I'll never do that.
yeah, I'll never disown you, right? Never, never. Jim.
So, it's a little different, but
I had adopted the 3 boys in 2 adoptions, and we had talked about adopting one more time, which is 4, rounded out to 4. And in the process, everything you try to do has to be approved by the caseworker. And my caseworker was just oppositional for some reason. She said no to everything. And one day, I was just frustrated, and I saw this profile for 4 boys in Ohio. And I knew she was on vacation. I thought, okay, well, I'll get her. So I sent it to her, knowing that she would have a stroke when she got back from vacation. And on Monday, I never heard from her. And I called my friend Darlene, who worked with her. I said, is Joe okay? She went, oh, yeah, she got back from her vacation just fine. I said, okay. So Tuesday, I opened my mailbox to, hey, these guys look great. I've sent all your paperwork off. Wait. That was a joke. And you guys have all met the 4 Ohio boys, so that was a joke that didn't go as planned.
There we go.
I don't regret it, but it definitely was a transaction I hadn't intended.
Right, right. Well, again, we all find ourselves, and again, this is the great thing about the Bible is it gives us examples of what we all have to, what we're all dealing with. This isn't like, well, this is the perfect thing. No, we see fallibility throughout the Bible, which, in turn lets us know that it's okay. But hopefully we can learn something, grasp something, take away a little bit of something that may just help us in the future. But again, going back to this, we're all sitting here going, I'll never sell my birthright. No way. It's way too important. There's way too much on the line here. But I'm famished. Quick. Right? I mean, that's the sort of things that we tend to say, right? Yeah, that stew was exactly incredible. I'm sure there's been people that's paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a bowl of stew somewhere.
I think the other point is Jacob knew the importance of his birthright. Esau did not. And I think comparing this situation to our situation, we as Christians all have an inheritance, yet we're willing to sell that inheritance for several different things. Those lust for lying, for all these certain things. And when we're on that path, when we're walking down it, we all know the penalty of sin, yet we continue to make the same decisions over and over and over again. And a lot of times it begins to separate us from God and that inheritance. So we're very easy to judge Jacob, yet he didn't know the importance of that, or sorry, Esau. He didn't know the importance of that birthright, and we do.
Mm-hmm.
Make the same decisions.
You're exactly right. He definitely knew at some point. I mean, like I said, I'm sure he lorded it over his little brother at times. And everyone told him, this is what you have, this is what you have, here's what it is, here's what it is. He knew what it was, obviously. But again, just like us, I mean, it's not that we're trying to judge him, but we're just pointing out how we're so much like, how we can be so much like everyone else that's in the Bible, we wouldn't think, who would ever trade their relationship of their kids or the future kids they maybe didn't have for a bowl of stew? Who would do that? Samson, right, yeah. Who would trade a valuable relationship, that you'd hope to, like we said last week, go the long distance with? Who would trade all that for a bowl of stew? Who would trade their reputation, their profession, their opportunities, their future for a bowl of stew? This is that word picture that you can take with you. All it takes, we see an example, all it takes is a bowl of stew, right? The answer would be, we'd say, nobody. Nobody would do that. Nobody. But the real answer is, potentially, everybody. Okay. We see it. We know it.
Essentially, every white-collar crime is
Could be. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and when we hear it in the context of this story, we're like, you know, what? Sell your birthright? Yeah? Yeah? It's almost like, you know, it's a joke. He wouldn't do that. No way, you know? That's just absurd, you know? Who in the world would ever do that for a bowl of stew? But when it's you, and it's right now, and it's right in front of you, when it's dark and you see a car that you need right now, guess what? You need it. Quick. I'm going to get it. Like I said, that's who we are. This is just. But again, I'm that way too. Remember this from last week. I'll never do that. Never. Never. But the problem is, we don't know that. Esau didn't know that, did it? I'm sure there was a time when Esau said, I'll never do that. Maybe Jacob maybe even asked him before. You know, who knows? He may have been in a situation. We don't know, but I'll never do that. But I'm famished. Quick. How do we justify such an unthinkable action? What kind of psychology is behind this? And how does it work in us? And Lou, you probably have to deal with this, you know, on a regular basis. You probably see these sort of things, you know. It's just how do we deal with these things, you know? You know, here's it is.
I think we're very good at rationalizing. I think we're very good at rationalizing things that we know that we shouldn't do. And I don't care what it is. From the simplest thing to the very most complex, we have a wonderful ability of being able to rationalize why this is an exception. I'll never do that, except in this instance, it is the right thing to do because of this, and this, and we rationalize it away all the time. I don't care whether it's having another piece of cake or whether it's making a life-changing decision. We have a gift, and several of us, if you don't know how to do it, just come see me. I'm really good at it. I can give you some pointers, but I think it's out there all the time.
Well, what does Esau do to rationalize it? What does he say? Look, I'm about to die. That's my reason. That's my reason for doing this, because look, I'm about to die. How much better of a rationalization? You can't go any much farther than that. Look, I'm about to die. Really? You just came in from hunting, and yeah, you might be hungry, you might be famished, but I don't see any bullet or, you know, arrows through you or you know, that, you know. Yeah, yeah. He's justifying, exactly. Right. Here's what he's doing in his mind. Look, I'm about to die. Yeah, look, I'm sure he's being very, you know, look, I'm about to die. Just give me some of that stew, you know. You know.
I have never known a hunter that didn't know how to cook. So this is perfect for me to.
I guess maybe he could have, yeah, he could have, but I doubt that's what he's doing here. I don't think he's about to die. It's just, again, we put ourselves in these sort of things, right? You know, yeah, and we see Jacob again over there. You know, he's just stirring the stew. Really, you're just about to die, really, huh? So again, he's justifying exactly what he's doing, or as Andy called it, he's just a lying to himself. He's just a lying to himself. You know, it's a. But what he says next, this is so reflective, and the things that we say. And here, this goes to the next point. So then Esau said, look, what good is the birthright to me? Now, here's that even more justification. Look, I'm about to die, and what good is it to me anyway, you know? But there's two more words we have to add to that, though. What good is it to me right now? What good is it to me right now? Isn't that what we do? Right now. We don't say, what good is it to me in the future? what good is it to me later is what good is it to me right now?
There are times too when we say at the moment of our capitulation, I'm going to regret this later.
Yeah, either that's a term we've all heard, We've heard people sign away, I'm going to regret this later, and they're still signing away on something, right? So, oh,
I'm maybe going to throw a kink in everything here, but why couldn't Jacob just give his brother a bowl of stew?
well, like I said, yeah, if we read the whole story all right on through, you can see really what sort of person Jacob, again, he knows what he's doing, that's for sure, Jacob, again, he's thinking, it's not worth anything to you right now, is it? That's what Jacob's thinking. It's not worth anything to you right now, In fact, he could be saying, it's not going to do anything to you till Dad dies. Who knows how long that could be? Yeah, it's true. You're right. It's not worth anything to you. That's later. That's later, not now. That's later, not now. Remember, I thought I had it in here. Remember what we talked about last week or the past couple of weeks, just even in the very first of this. The integrity of the upright will guide them. The integrity of the upright will guide them. Longer is later. Treacherous, those are the people who are bent over looking down, is now. Can you see what was Esau focused on? Smell, bolus, that looks good. He's focused on what's right in front of him, what his senses are showing right now. You remember? I'm famished. That smells so good. I remember when coming in as kids, coming in from playing outside, and Mom's cooking something, and it just smells so good. You'd go over and the old thing of taking something, slap your hand like, what? Wait till dinner. Well, but it's just so good. I can't. I mean, you have that drive that you just go right for that piece of meat or something, and just, Mark does this when we go down to have some, what do you do? First you pull it out, first one you got to take, here, taste a little bit of this right here. And Dar's probably, wait till he gets to the table. You got to sample. Yep. So, now, here's another thing that Andy kind of said, which I think is important, because, again, he says, if you're going to take something away, take this away, because I know how kind of simple we can tend to be. Now is now, and now it's gone. Now, right now it's gone. That's how fast now is, right? It's gone. Now, it's gone. But we like to focus on now, don't we? It's amazing how we tend to want to focus on that so much. So I don't know if we're going to get time to even get to the next part of this thing. So we're going to wait and finish out this next week. Let's go ahead and have a word of prayer. Most wonderful God, we just thank you again for your goodness, for your glory, for your word, the power, how it's living and active. The things that we can learn from it, dear Father, we thank you. And dear Father, again, we just thank you for your wonderful blessing of grace that you pour out on each and every one of us, that we can be made anew each and every day, and that your blessings are new each morning. And as we continue through today, help us to have an enjoyable time of worshiping and fellowship and becoming closer to you through our friends and our family and our brothers and our sisters. And again, just lift us up and lift up our thoughts and our prayers to you, and help the Spirit to lead us and guide us today, dear Father. It's in Christ's name we do pray. Amen.